What's going on, everybody? We are back. We got episode number 46 of the Club and Sub podcast. Tonight, we're going to be breaking down this weekend's card. We have okay card. We got Robert Whittaker taking on Kelvin Gastelum. Wow, I am fucking off my game right now. Decent card. I mean, we have some bets. I don't think it is. I think there's going to be more opportunities in the coming weeks that are a bit better than this. But we'll break it down as we always do. Try to keep it light and entertaining. And yeah, we'll go from there. As usual, we're brought to you by betonline.ag for a 50% bonus up to your first $1,000 deposit. Use the promo code CLUBSUB. As usual, I always say it's the best book for MMA. Again, first with props this week. They got lines all the way out to May 8th, I believe, right now. So yeah, check it out. betonline.ag, promo code CLUBSUB. And then yeah, if you could just drop a like and subscribe if you like the show, we'd really appreciate it. It would help us out a lot. So, yeah, thanks, guys. We're going to jump right into it here. First fight of the night. We have ourselves Tony Gravley taking on Anthony Burchak. And to be completely honest, I thought I was going to play Gravley. I think he's probably the side. To be honest, he probably has, like, hindsight 85% upside here. I think he's better than Burchak, on the mat, and that's probably all that matters because Gravley's going to be aggressive. I guess my one concern here, and the problem with laying the juice with Gravley is just really more, I don't think his striking is particularly trustworthy. Burchak does have a wrestling background, and, while I don't really trust Burchak to defensively grapple effectively, there's enough concerns for me to not want to lay that number. But, yeah, I think Gravley's going to win here. Luke, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm kind of with you as well. He kind of fights with his hands down, is a little hittable, pretty hook reliant, doesn't really move his head. Burchak does throw heat. We've seen Gravley, dinged a few times, and even on the ground. Like, don't get me wrong, I think the price is more so justified. Like you said, I think he has a pretty clear wrestling path. I do think he's the better wrestler. I mean, I guess on paper, Burchak's actually the better jiu-jitsu guy, but I don't think there's too much stock to really take into that. He's only 34 years old, but I think he's also like a 34-year-old guy that's like 42 in fight years, pretty much. I think he's a little over the hill. So I think Burchak's kind of largely reliant on something pretty memey because I think he's going to struggle to win minutes over a guy like Gravley. But to your point, outside of like the hitability of Gravley, he has stuck his head into guillotines and other submissions. He's largely been positionally responsible, largely got out of them. But that's still, I guess, enough of a concern that I wouldn't really lay minus 300. I'd rather sit back. But I think he probably wins a wrestling-based decision, if not pounds him out on the ground or something like that.
Yeah, agreed. Lags, what do you think here?
So I actually do have a play here. I actually am laying the juice with Gravley here. So I have a unit and a half Gravley and a parlay about minus 320. I kind of echo you guys' sentiments. Just I think that a heavy grappling-based decision is live. I think, like Luke said, a ground-and-pound KO is live. I just don't really trust Burchak to find that memey type of sub here. So yeah. I think the price is justified.
Yeah, fair. We move on, and we got second fight of the night. Austin Hubbard, who probably needs a new manager. We'll get to in a bit, taking on Dakota Bush. Luke, you want to start here?
Yeah, so if you've been listening to this pod for a while, we've thrown our money against Austin Hubbard a time or two. I think 3, maybe 4 times for me. It's worked out some, other times not. What I will say about Bush, on paper and in theory, he has a style to beat Austin Hubbard. I guess the question becomes is, does that translate to the UFC level? Because I don't think his losses to Willis, and I can't recall the other guy's name, but both guys not bad losses that he's got. Proactively, looks to get takedowns, decent back take, decent positional control, nice rear naked choke. Hubbard's given his back on numerous occasions, but not to quote unquote wiki cap it, but Bush isn't Ramos. World class black belt, Joe Selecki, very good black belt, good wrestler, not Marco Madsen, Olympic Greco-Roman wrestler. He's just not. So once again, it's kind of how does that translate? But like I said, on paper, I do think Bush has a path. But coming in on less than a week's notice, can he proactively wrestle like that for 15 minutes? I have no idea. it is a step up. I do think Hubbard has the edge on the feet. So I'm going with Hubbard, but by no means would I lay favorite money on Austin Hubbard at this point against someone who can proactively wrestle grapple.
Lags, how about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of similar thoughts with Luke. Not really much to add. I just the short notice for Bush is kind of what's making us more lean more Hubbard side.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And I mentioned I think he needs a new manager, and I say that because go watch. If you listen to James from Lucre MMA, he went over it, but it's something like now 7 of 8 potential fights Hubbard's been booked with a grappler, including the ones that keep getting canceled. They keep filling in with grapplers, and it's like, look, I get that he doesn't project as a future superstar, but like the guy was the LFA champ, like. Give him something. Throw him a bone here. He doesn't say no to any fights. Like, give him at least something that's favorable once in a while. But yeah, I'm with you guys. Really, I guess I'd pick Hubbard to win. If you told me it was like -110, -120, I'd have some interest in Hubbard just because Luke, you pointed it out earlier. But most of Bush's subs have like come early in fights, and like in this one, we have the short nature, or short notice nature of this fight. And like Hubbard, look, I don't rate him at all. We all bet Selecki against him primarily because it was very clear if you can clinch Hubbard, you can get his back. He just has a bad tendency to give it up in those spots. But like what I will say is he does fight. Like it's not like, ironically, I kind of think in the Selecki fight, he panicked a bit with Selecki on his back when he started like throwing like, pounding his head when he was on his back of the backpack. Normally he stays fairly calm in those positions. And that's like, it's enough to scare me off a Bush dog shot just because, like, it is short notice. And if he starts to tire, like, you could see the tide turn pretty dramatically. And Hubbard does tend to, work the body and work leg kicks. Like, he does good attritional work. And so, I mean, at the line, I think it's maybe a tad wide or right. But, yeah, if it wouldn't shock me, like you said, like if Bush comes out there and subs him, wouldn't be surprising. But
could it be a Tony Durden, Chris Gutierrez situation?
That's a great comparison. That's actually, it's not the worst idea ever, although that's one of the softer 10-8s I've ever seen, that first round of Durden Gutierrez.
Yeah. It was a loose comparison, but I think there's somewhat comparison relevant.
That actually, to be honest, almost identical because Hubbard throws those leg kicks pretty hard too. It would not be shocking to see that happen and see some kind of, hard adrenaline dump from Bush come, that 7 or 8 minute mark. That's pretty interesting. But yeah, I mean, it's a pass fight. I think it'll be interesting because I actually think Bush, after he gets a bit more experience under his belt, is interesting. But yeah, we move on. We have, I'll be honest, I didn't even look at this. I just did it.
I'll be honest.
We'll start here.
I'll be honest. Yeah.
Luke, I think you made a play here. We had Zara Farron against Josie Nunes. Did you do it? I know you were talking about it.
No, I haven't bet anything yet, but yes, unfortunately, I did sit through a good solid hour of tape on this probably. I think our boy AMG put a tweet out earlier today that this is about, as bottom of the barrel and low level as it gets. And I can't disagree with that sentiment at all. I guess the main talking points is that, Farron is going to be exponentially the longer, taller girl here. She's fought up at 145. Obviously got a little bit of a tough rap getting Megan Anderson and Felicia Spencer, where she got ran through pretty quickly. Outside of that, her strength of comp's been pretty low. Comes forward, walks girls down, has some pop in her shots. I think blue belt in jiu-jitsu, a pretty elementary on her back, but seems to have like some concept at a bare minimum of what to do there once again, in the comparison of the level of the fight. And then Nunes, I would compare as like a Walmart version of Jessica Andrade, pretty much. Short girl, just swings forward, kicks decently well, pretty hook reliant, but does have power, also likes to dictate the pace. So it's kind of one of those fights where I think something's going to have to give between both girls because despite Farron being longer, she hasn't really shown me that she can like fight going backwards or behind a jab and utilize that size at all. So I think that's an interesting component of the fight. I think people who are betting Farron are just pretty much blindly banking on the fact that she's much bigger than this girl. But to be honest, I kind of think Nunes finds her way inside and probably finds a knockout here. And then just with both girls being defensively flawed on the ground, I could see ground and pound finishes shitty guard subs, something like that. So I don't think it's, a terrible spot to actually target like low level WMMA violence. But the under 2.5 fight doesn't go to decision, is around evens. Was kind of hoping for a better number, to be honest, on that. But I do think we see someone find a finish.
Yeah, Lex, how about you? Or would you say you're passing this as well?
Yeah, nothing
good,
too
good.
Nothing too low. Yeah. I think the only like, sorry, I'll just add like a little bit. I was just looking at props earlier, and Zerafarin by decision is plus 250, and then if you're looking at Luke, like you were saying, by KO is plus 420. So,
yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's not bad.
Shot those
I'm gonna stick with you here because I think you have a play on our next fight. We got GM3 taking on the Butcher, Bartosz Fabinski. What do you got here?
Yes, I do have a player. So I pretty much think if you're playing this fight, it's either Fabinski decision or GM3 submission, just based off of obviously the poor tendencies that Mr. Fabinski has on top. And I kind of think that the GM3 sub is live here just because of those positions, those poor positions on top that Fabinski gives up. And that I just kind of think that his cardio is really tampers later in the fight as well. And not that GM3 is like some cardio machine, but I think that the sub is live in this fight. And obviously, like, Fabinski's the proven minute winner in this spot. So I think you're playing GM3, it's got to be by finish, submission inside the distance. So I got a half unit GM3 sub at plus 290. Pretty much just main path to victory.
I don't mind it. I've waffled back and forth on whether to stab Fabinski decision all week. And it's like the fact that I'm waffling.
I think you play both, to be honest. Like, it's plus 290 for the sub, and then I think the decision's plus 130.
Yeah, I mean, you can. I'm just like, do I really want to get involved in another Bartosz Fabinski fight, after the Muniz disaster? And the worst part about the Muniz fight is, like, I came on the podcast and said Fabinski puts his hands on the mat all the time. He's an armbar waiting to happen. And then I bet him anyway, and then he got armbarred in the first round. And it's like I kind of feel like the same way here. It's like I do, like you said, Lags, like you can play both the decision and the sub because like Fabinski doesn't really throw hard, heavy ground and pound. And I think, we've seen enough at this point that Fabinski has no striking. He's improved his ability to kind of 1-2 his way inside, but like, unless like a 5% outcome hits and he just happens to clip Mearshart like perfectly, it's just he's going to go in there and he's going to attempt takedowns. Like that's what's going to happen. He's going to get those takedowns pretty much whenever he wants them. And it's just going to be a matter of can GM3 do his usual bullshit, get mounted and sweep him, or hit the sub from guard. And he could. Like the same concerns I had about Fabinski just hanging out in people's guards and getting subbed are still there in this fight. It's crazy to say that I think an armbar could be like a 25, 30, 35% outcome, but it could be, in MMA. Yeah. So I might do it. I honestly, because I think that's the way to play it. Like, I think you're right.
Do it, John. He's your Lord and Savior. You got to back him one more time.
I know. No, GM3 let me down massively against Kamzat. Guy just. But either way, yeah, we'll see. Maybe I'll do it. I think Lags is right there, though. Luke, what do you think?
I was really hoping Lags was going to like preface and just whip out a saxophone and start banging some beats before the bet. I was like, that would have been epic. No, so I actually played Muniz against Fabinski last time out. That came through. Ironically, I guess I'm not as bullish on the Mearshart sub here. Once again, I definitely think it's an outcome. Theoretically, Fabinski's going to give the type of fight to Mearshart that Mearshart needs to succeed. He has made positional mistakes in the past. It's just kind of whether it comes or not, because at the end of the day, I just think it's going to be pretty much impossible for Mearshart to really win minutes generally. So I really actually don't hate the hedge on both of those plays. I actually might just do that myself. I just kind of really struggled to see the fight ending any two other ways. So yeah, but I guess I'm more so on the side Fabinski just grinds his way to a decision, but not a confident take.
I mean, you could have one of these things where Fabinski clips him coming in or gets clipped coming in. I think both of those are possible, but it's like
GM3 body kick.
Right? Yeah. Like, how often is that happening, though? Like, maybe 1 in 10, like something like that happens, right? So, yeah, we move on, and we have my dog play of the night. We got Jessica Penney taking on Lupita Gadines. My girl, Lupita Gadines, who I put 3 units on when she fought Vanessa Demopoulos for the LFA title. But that said, I like Jessica Penney here, and I played her for a unit of plus 240. Look, I kind of like Gadines. She has very crisp boxing, like, no question. Maybe some of the best boxing in the division, to be honest, outside of the elites, really. I guess my problem is I shouldn't even say it's a problem so much as there's so little data that I think is really useful for Gadines. Even going back to the Demopoulos fight, she looked good and her hands always look good. Technically, her hands look excellent, but she's not fighting girls who can really provide any resistance. And Demopoulos actually, once Demopoulos realized she wasn't going to be a sub and actually started to bite the mouthpiece, started having some success with her hands herself. And so that's one concern for me. It's like, maybe she can come out here and just box Penny's face off. That's a very live outcome, but it's like, I would say comfortably, I feel like Penny's, even though I think Penny's not a good striker, she's definitely the best striker that Lupita's facing to date. The other concern is, look, again, her grappling has looked okay, but she hasn't grappled, anybody of any consequence yet. And, now we have Penney, who, look, not an elite grappler, but I'd say she's about average for the division. And on top of that, you have, a massive size difference here. Lupita could probably, if they had a women's atomweight division, she'd be fighting in that division probably. She's 5'2", she has a 63-inch reach, and, Penney's going to be having 3 inches of height and 4 inches of reach. Now, I don't think Penney's going to be able to use that reach effectively, but I do think, it's one of those fights where, if Lupita continues, basically bomb into the pocket, Penney probably is going to look to clinch up with her. So, look, if Lupita comes out here and puts it on her, I won't be surprised. I think she's the rightful favorite, but I think there are enough questions that minus 300 is crazy. And look, I mean, the bottom line is, Penney, I know she hasn't fought in 4 years and she could be shot, but WMMA, fighters don't tend to age as quickly as they do in men's MMA. And, the reality is, she's been competitive with basically everybody she's fought outside of the elites who have dumpstered her, in fairness. But, Gadines may get there one day, but I don't think she's there right now. And so, yeah, I have 1 unit of Penney plus 240. Like I said, I favor Gadines, but I don't think I can go past like 60, 65%. Luke, how about you?
Yeah, so I've said it for a while. I think Gadines is the truth. I don't hate the bet on Penney from like the perspective that you're taking, because there's a lot of things I can't disagree with in regards to the strength of competition that Gadines has fought. She is the smaller girl, younger, less battle tested. Penney's technically really only gotten, beaten by the elites outside of Daniel Taylor, which is a big red flag for this fight for me, personally. Granted, Daniel Taylor's kind of a funky girl. I know, competitive minutes to some extent with Wiley, likes to just kind of avoid the fight. I get that, but still another girl who's not 5 feet tall, but 5 feet tall, who was winning the range striking exchanges. So I guess my thing is, I think even if Gadines wanted to take this fight down, I think she'd probably be fine on top. I don't think that would be the smartest way to approach the fight. But I think she's got the faster hands, more power, better optics, willing to go forward. I think her footwork is better. Penney tends to just largely be a punching bag at distance. I guess if anything, I'd be more concerned in terms of Gadines is the clinch game of Penney being taller and being able to get to that plum. She could have success there, but assuming Gadines just kind of keeps moving, sticks and moves, throws those, that lead left hook that she likes with that straight right. I think that's going to be there all day. I haven't played it yet. It looks like a lot of Penney money is coming in. I'm assuming more will, but like I said, I guess it might be more of a bit of a ledge play, and me getting too fired up on these, younger WMMA fighters wouldn't be the first time it's burned me in the past. But I do think this girl's the real deal, and I think she passed the test with flying colors.
Lex, that'd be you.
Yeah, so I don't mind Gadines. She's 5-0, obviously, but minus 280 here, big step up in competition. Haven't really seen any grappling with her. It's kind of a big red flag for me in general. Like, it's kind of an easy pass right there. And then the Penney, the layoff, that's enough pass for me. So I'm rooting for you, John, but sorry, Luke.
Hopefully we get another.
It is what it is. It is what it is. I respect the dog shot. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I'm the a-hole who's trying to justify a bet over 70% indication on a 5-0 girl. So yeah, all the credence goes to John.
You know what? We need a little bit more war here on the podcast. It's been a little bit.
Yeah.
It's been a little too chummy the last few months. We move on to a play that I think we're all going to be on the same side here. Luke, I'll throw it your way first. We got King Kong Alexander Romanov, the Bane of John, taking on Juan Espino, making his second fight in the UFC. What do you got here?
Yeah, once again, another guy. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while, we haven't exactly been the biggest Romanov supporters out there. It's not that my tune has really changed on him much at all, because I still think we've learned almost essentially nothing about him, really. Even though we kind of took that shitty shot on DeLima, who was way too exposed to that fight. But ultimately, why the fight, I guess, is interesting is that it's two guys who largely haven't faced much resistance. But I do think that Espino is the better wrestler and grappler technically, and obviously credential-wise. Guy's been a black belt for almost a decade. Fought over in Senegal, those absolute giants of human beings over there that I don't even know if they're not on steroids. They might just not be and just be crazy freaks. But pretty impressive. He's fought, I think, freestyle wrestling, combat sambo, won jiu-jitsu world championships, solid single leg, double leg. If he gets on top of Romanov, he's definitely one of the few guys at heavyweight who I think can honestly make him pay on the ground for some of those small mistakes. But I mean, I guess it could be a standpoint of, just Derek Lewis syndrome where the guys, meaning Romanov, is just like too big to pass into these, mounted positions, and he can just, bull buck his way back to his feet or something, and Espino can't do anything. So that could be in play, but I do think Espino is the more proven guy and has the skill set to beat a guy like Romanov. I actually take that back. I did make a small stab on the sub today. I'll probably end up on his money line, because in the case that I'm wrong, that Espino doesn't just take him down and sub him, I do think there's a scenario where both guys just death gas, and the, I guess, experience, grinding wrestling factor of Espino just kind of kicks in, and he's able to win via sloppy, like Roy Nelson, Derek Lewis cage push type of deal, or just lay on top of him. But we'll see. So not like a super strong take, not something I'll be overtly exposed to, but I think Espino is the side.
Lags, how about you?
Yeah, so I like Espino here as well. I actually think he's the better striker here, clearly the better grappler here, and that I think that outside of Romanov, just like his brute strength and physical nature, I think that's kind of all he brings to the table, really. I don't think his cardio, like I said, he kind of falls off of a cliff. We talked about that earlier today. And so I think that the Espino side actually is very lighter, and that I think outside of Romanov just nuking him potentially in the first round, that Espino has a great chance to find a submission here. So I actually played the round one sub. I have a half unit, I have a quarter unit on the round one sub at plus 850, and then a half unit at plus 330. I think that more often than not, this fight ends inside the distance, and Espino's finding submission.
Yeah, Espino's going to single leg him 10 seconds into this fight, and then things are going to go downhill fast for Romanov.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I think. To be honest, I have one unit on Espino right now, plus 126, and I'm probably going to add more. I just noticed FanDuel's got it back at that number again right now. I'm probably going to
I wouldn't be surprised, actually. Sorry, real quick. I wouldn't be surprised, actually, if that number gets a little higher, probably. I feel like the public just kind of likes Romanov here.
It could. The line's been ping-ponging around a lot. But I'll say this. I've been fairly certain that Espino is the better technical grappler. And, one of the things that gave me pause and that I only went one unit as first is that, look, Romanov's incredibly strong and incredibly physical. And the reality is Romanov can probably win a lot of fights in the UFC at heavyweight just by being very aggressive and very physical. The thing is, and it's something that I kind of just thought of, right before we went on, or not thought of, but it just didn't really, I should have thought of it earlier, to be honest. But basically, like when you think of grappling matches, and I do expect this to be a grappling match, like I'd be pretty surprised if Espino decides, okay, let's swing. But grappling tends to be fairly binary. Like it's there's a lot less variance in grappling than just about any other aspect of MMA or any of the martial arts, because great grapplers don't really lose to good grapplers. It just doesn't really happen. And now I'm not saying Espino's great, but I'd say he's very good. And I'd say Romanov is somewhere between average and good, to be honest. And I kind of just think, unless it does turn out that Romanov's too strong, Espino is going to basically do whatever he wants to him in the grappling as long as he has gas. But I don't think Romanov's got a great gas tank either, and that's kind of the thing. Unless I'm just badly misreading the grappling, which I'd be pretty surprised at, I think Espino's going to, just handle him here. And, on top of that, look, let's say it does break down into a striking match. I'm pretty confident that Espino is the much better striker, to be honest. Romanov's incredibly hittable in space. Whenever he spent time there, you look at the De Lima fight, he was not liking getting tagged in space. And you saw him just basically force bull rushes into the clinch when he realized, he couldn't stand there. And, we saw that against pretty low-level regional fighters as well who would hit him consistently there. So, yeah, I have a unit on Espino right now. I'm probably going to add to it. I really think, look, if Romanov comes out here and rolls Espino in the grappling, I'll be very, very impressed. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think Espino's going to do whatever he wants to him. So, yeah, we move on. We have Tracy Cortez taking on Justine Kish. I'm kind of bummed here. I actually kind of wanted to take the Cortez shot, but, I can't lay minus 275 with Tracy Cortez, to be honest. I was hoping to get below minus 230 because while Kish does have the experience edge on her side, it's not by much. She only has 10 fights to Cortez's 9. And the couple times we've seen Kish get really handled in the grappling and put on her back, she's looked horrible there. And on the other side, Cortez, the girls she hasn't been able to control, have generally been because they could fight to get up pretty effectively, at least somewhat effectively, whereas I don't think Kish can. And I actually do think Cortez's wrestling is pretty legit for WMMA. So I guess, I kind of think she's 75, 80% here. I don't really want to play it at minus 275. If we do get some late Kish theme, I would lay it. But yeah, I think unless she loses her mind and decides she wants to test her striking, and even then I think she could win that fight, I think she's going to do whatever she wants. Luke, how about you?
Yeah, I've kind of flipped my take on this. Like pre-tape, I thought I might be taking the dog shot on Kish, and yeah, no. After watching the Felice Herrig fight, that's pretty concerning now. I mean, I think Herrig's like a kickboxer by nature, and I think her wrestling is actually somewhat underrated given the quote-unquote perceived pedigree. But even then, she pretty much got ragdolled by Felice Herrig for, I think, controlled for almost like 8 minutes, taken down like 4 or so times. So granted, that's one fight she hasn't really been like aggressively wrestled outside of that in the UFC, taken down a handful of times, but that's like really the one girl who has aggressively wrestled her, and it didn't look pretty. Granted, that was 3.5 years ago, and she's fought pretty much nothing but striking-based fighters since. So hypothetically, could have Kish made improvements in those last 3.5 years? Potentially. But what I will say definitively is that Cortez is easily the best wrestler that she's fought so far. And in my opinion, as long as Cortez doesn't pull the bullshit she did in the first round against Mello and decide to stand and strike, because I slightly disagree with you there, John. I actually do think Kish wins the striking exchanges here. But if she just goes to her base and actively wrestles, I think she wins a grinding wrestling-based decision. I don't think she submits Kish. She's been in dominant positions on some girls before, but her submission acumen isn't there. And even in that Herrig fight with Kish, Herrig had like a super deep choke in, and Kish was able to find her way out of that somehow. I still don't really know. Well, she kind of somewhat fought hands and turned into it, but it was still just pretty crazy, actually. So yeah, I like Cortez. Would I lay 260 on it? No, but I like her to win.
By the way, Luke, I'm not saying I would pick her in a kickboxing match, just that I do think she could win a kickboxing match.
Yeah, okay, I hear you.
Lags, how about you?
Well, yet again, you guys not laying the chalk, and I am here laying the chalk. So I am laying the chalk with Cortez in the parlay with to close out with Gravley, and it's 1.5 units, minus 124. I pretty much think Cortez is just going to be taken down early in the round, rinse and repeat, and it's going to be a grindy wrestle-based decision. I mean, the main thing that really brought me to this play was the last fight with Stephanie Egger. Much bigger girl fighting at 135 and even a couple fights weighing in at 140, and she was wrestling her with no problem. Not just a Whittaker, but I mean, Kisha's just such a small girl at flyweight that I think this should be fairly easy for Cortez.
Yeah, agreed. We move on, and we have Luis of Violent Bob Ross Pena taking on Alex. Why did I bet you against Nazareth Hack Munoz? Luke, you're up first. What do you got here?
Yeah, I've actually been a very critical of Mr. Violent Bob Ross in the past, but ironically in this spot, which is still a little kind of weird, but I've managed to finagle my way into making a play on him here. I'm just not a huge fan of Munoz. Obviously, he comes from that credentialed wrestling background, D1 Oklahoma State. I hear that the times he has wrestled, he's looked good, but there's been often he's also looked to stand and strike for extended minutes as well. I don't necessarily think that's the case here, but I guess off the top, I do think Pena is the better striker, more technical, potentially as finishing upside on the feet. I would like him to be a bit more aggressive than he has historically. That's been a little bit of my issue with him, is that he kind of tends to fight in bursts at times. So I hope he doesn't do that here. But then even in the scenario that he does get taken down by Munoz, I mean, realistically, Pena really hasn't been overtly controlled on the ground or put on his back for very often, either without, using that Kimura sweep or threatening something. And so I'm not necessarily convinced that Munoz can withstand those sub attempts, even if he is grounded. Even against like Nick Newell, I think it's a great example. He took Nick Newell down. Not shitting on the guy. The guy's got one arm, but he was able to pretty much threaten, at least to make space, create space. And Munoz is like, screw this. And he just stood up. And so I guess, and then just all of that to the side and just a little bit of narrative. It sounds like Pena's in a pretty good spot at ATT right now. He's had a lot of bodies to work with. His main partner for this camp was Mr. Matus Gamrot, who we just saw last week, who is a pretty strong wrestler and grappler. So I think he's probably a pretty good body to mimic, and actually a better body to mimic Munoz than Munoz in and of himself. So I think that should have Pena prepared. As long as the guy doesn't have a lobotomy here, I think he has really all the tools to win this fight. And my, slight tinfoil hat prediction, this is the performance that we see Pena break out.
Lags, how about you?
Yeah, so it's not really a secret. Munoz to get the fight to the ground here, but that's my thing with Pena. I don't really know if I could trust him to keep it standing, just kind of what we've seen historically. I mean, I don't really rate Munoz, a great wrestler, but just the fact that Munoz is going to be, attempting takedowns, I think pretty consistently here is enough to scare me at Pena to chalk, really.
Yeah, fair. I want to play Pena, to be honest. I don't love the number where it is right now. I'm kind of hoping we'll see some late money come in from people that are like, oh, Munoz wrestles a lot, we should bet him. And I'll get this down to like minus 125. The people like me who bet New Munoz against Hack Press. Unwise. But yeah, look, I mean, Luke, you touched on a lot of good stuff. I think Pena I still don't think it's an issue of talent. Like, even watching his striking, I actually think technically boxing isn't bad. It's almost like he's too tentative. Like, he doesn't want to sit down on his shots and really step into the pocket ever. And the result is he leaves a lot of stuff short, even when he's being active. In the grappling, quick cheap plug here for MMA by the numbers, but he sells a great advanced stats package for about $30 a month. And it basically does the work for you. I don't have to grind out Excel sheets anymore. But anyway, interesting stat that he had in his stats package this week. Pena has spent 52% of his time in the octagon grappling. Of that time, he has spent 75% in a control position. Now, that is despite the fact I actually went back and looked at his takedown numbers. He's been taken down more than he has taken down his opponents in the UFC, and yet he has still dominated control positions. Why? Like you touched on, Luke, he's incredible at, basically attacking submissions to reverse position. And look, at some point, he's going to fight somebody who's good enough on top where that doesn't work and he gets punished. But I don't think this is it. I see Munoz on top, and it's nothing really. He's kind of a guy who's going to sit and guard and doesn't really seem to have a plan once he gets there. I kind of just think, look, I'm a little nervous about, maybe Pena doesn't do enough standing. And he drops a couple rounds via takedown optics. But I kind of think if there's extended grappling exchanges here, it's going to look a lot like the Steve Peterson fight where Pena inevitably, ends up in the dominant position. I kind of think Pena sub is super live here. I wouldn't even be totally surprised by knockout. Munoz is unbelievably hittable. I just don't think Pena is really aggressive enough on the feet, as I touched on. But yeah, I'm not as low on Pena as everybody else is, to be honest. Like, he's shown flashes against okay competition. It's just, I think it's a matter of putting it together, really, for me. Now, maybe he never will, but I don't think he's that bad. And I think he's the side here, to be honest. I think he's like 65% somewhere in there. So we'll see.
C's also on him. C's also on him as well, and I think.
C's on him huge. Yeah, C's on him huge. I think. I think that might be.
I think he's playing the KO too.
Yeah. C did take the stab at KO.
Yeah, I think.
Why not just play ITD? 10-1. Isn't ITD like plus 400 though?
I got it up right now. Give me a sec. Plus 230.
All right, that's not that good. That's about right.
And then sub is 330.
Yeah, nothing that really stands out to me. But anyway, let's move on.
Sorry, the KO is 10-1 still on there.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, it's not bad. I don't love it. Like I said, I think it's possible, but 10% seems right to me, to be honest. So we move on. We got Abdul Razak Al Hassan making his comeback fight. Well, not his comeback fight, his third fight, I guess, since the start of COVID. Something I'll touch on in a second. Legs, you want to go take this away?
Yeah, you want me to bring up my greasy theory for this one?
Yeah, do it.
So, well, first of all, I kind of think we're all probably in agreement that Razak probably just like murks him in the first round here. But my greasy theory kind of here is that, Abdul Razak Al Hassan is, Muslim, and it is Ramadan right now. So is the guy hydrating? Is he eating as much as he normally is? Moving up a weight class also for the fight? So not, nothing crazy.
Yeah,
not saying, play Malkoun here, but I mean, it's just something to add a little wrinkle in there.
Yeah, it's not that crazy. It's not nuts too. I don't know why I thought this. Someone said earlier in the week, they're like, yeah, this is at 185. And I was like, okay, so he's dropping a weight class. I don't know why I thought, I don't know why I thought like he was coming down. I just really wasn't thinking about this fight that much.
You think he was
the line where it was. Yeah, dude, like I said, like this is like the line came out for this, and I was just like, I don't really need to look too close at this. But yeah, like him going up, like that's a little concerning to me because it's like the guy came back and hasn't looked good. He missed weight twice, and so now he's going up, and he's not particularly tall, and he's a little gassy already. And look, I don't want to put. I'm not going to play Jacob. No, I'm not going to play Jacob Malkoun. But what I will say is, look, there were a lot of people who liked Malkoun against Phil Hawes. Now I didn't because I still haven't really seen anything that I think is really discernible about his game from tape. He has 4 fights prior to the UFC and then got KO'd in 20 seconds. He could be really good or he could just be horrendous. I don't really know. What I do think, though, is like I'm not sure the Hawes fight, especially with this version of Razak, how predictive it's going to be for this. I do agree with you, Legs. I think the most likely outcome is a quick Al Hassan KO, but I've said that about his last 2 fights, right?
Right.
And in one of them, it just didn't come at all, and he got butchered. And then the other, he just got flatlined. So it's like, look, the thing is, if I saw, at least with Lizez, when he fought Lizez, there was tape of like Lizez seeming to have a clue offensively striking. I just don't think any of the 2 fights that I've found from Malkoun are super relevant. And so it's like, if he beats Razak, I won't be shocked, but I don't know. Unless this went up to like plus 400, I don't think I'd want to take the stab, to be honest.
And that's the thing is too. So the thing is too, like, even with the Worthy fight, like I like the under 1.5 at that spot because like at least Worthy could, or not Worthy. What was his name? I can't
Malarkey?
Who no,
no, the guy that Razak fought last.
Chaos Williams.
Oh, was that?
Sorry,
okay.
Chaos Williams. No, sorry. Yeah, there was violence spot there because Chaos could finish here, but could Malkoun finish under 1.5? I don't know.
Who knows?
I don't think there's. I don't think there's enough to. I don't think there's enough to suggest that he could. So.
Yeah, Luke, what's your take?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, like against Malkoun against Hawes, I tried to make a case for Malkoun, and then he died in like 18 seconds. But it was honestly kind of a similar narrative to this fight, at least. Largely round one guy. Gas hasn't looked good. Extended. That guy's minus 300. I have been willing to take the stabs of the blind fades of the guys who, I'm just hoping they don't die, because if the win condition isn't met, should they be minus 300? Probably not. But to your point, 4-1, still not a whole lot of data. And even to the point of like Razak moving up, I mean, he's not really undersized. This Malkoun guy isn't really a very big 185 either. So, yeah, I think it's a pass. It's definitely not a guy I'd want to put my parlays, I guess, put it that way. There's just not really any evidence he could win a decision. So. But yeah, he probably should be favored. I guess I agree with him probably getting a KO in 1-2 more often than not.
Yeah. And if not, then we won't have to ever talk about this again. At least not with regard to Isaac Al-Hassan. And
I will say what's crazy though, his round one knockout plus money. Not saying I'm tempted at, but it's like plus
is that crazy though?
It's plus 135 though. It's like
I do have to say one more thing. I'm still like 100% jaded from Al-Hassan because he killed a plus 5,500 parlay for me on my last leg. I was 6 out of 7 and Chaos Williams killed him in 30 seconds. I'll never forget that for the rest of my life. That sucks.
I'll tell you what Razak did for me. He made me near Lazez look good enough to give me plus 210 on Worley Alves last fight.
That's true. That was a good call. That was a good call. That was the ultimate John Campfire spot where he just went, nah.
Well, you might have one of these in this next fight here. We got the Pitbull taking his 51st fight of his career. Andrei Arlovsky taking on the Vanilla Gorilla, Chase Sherman. What do you got?
I love Arlovsky here. Well, I shouldn't say love Arlovsky. I like him a decent amount. I guess it's hard to say you love Arlovsky with a minus next to his name against a living body in 2021, but nonetheless, I still like him. To be honest, I don't think Chase Sherman has really proved anything. I guess I give him a little credit. I think there have been some improvements made in his game recently, but you go look at the 3 guys he beat on the regional scene. Those guys probably wouldn't even sniff a Bellator card, to be honest. Beats up Ike Villanueva, who's a gassed up middleweight, chewed his leg up, knocked him out. Okay, whatever. And so I guess really the debunking angle I want to go against Sherman here is, I guess, the fact that Sherman does land statistically double the output is Arlovsky pretty much. But if you really look at Arlovsky historically, he's never really getting volumed up by about anybody. I think the 2 guys in recent years who have landed the most significant strikes on him were Bozer, who landed 68. 2/3 of those were leg kicks. Arlovsky still won. You can disagree with the decision all you want, but that's just a classic case in point how judges don't score leg kicks. So I don't give a shit. Arlovsky won the fight. Then Ben Rothwell landed like 70 on him, but then Arlovsky also landed like 150. The only guy to ever land more than those 2 guys in the last 12 years was Tim Sylvia back in 2008 in a 5-round title fight on Arlovsky. So ultimately what I'm getting to is if you're telling me that Chase Sherman is going to come out here and just volume up Andrei Arlovsky, just beat his leg to an absolute pulp. A lot of people forget Arlovsky's a traditional kickboxer. That's actually the background he comes from. But he's a guy who plays the outside well, can slow the fights down incredibly well too. This is probably his most winnable fight since he fought Albini back in like 2017. With that being said, I do think Arlovsky justifies a minus next to his name. I have money on Arlovsky's money line, and I also played his decision line at plus 170 today. The decision, I guess, could be a little bit sweaty because, honestly, I think a knockout from Arlovsky is more live than a knockout from Sherman, which might be a hot take, but either way, he's largely been a decision machine, hasn't really knocked many guys out in recent years. Sherman has shown to take a decent amount of punishment in some of his fights, too. I think it's more of a pitter-patter, traditional Arlovsky striking range kickboxing match that he puts on the vet lesson.
Legs, how about you?
Yes, I'm with Luke here. I like Arlovsky. I haven't made a play here, but I think Chase Sherman's laughably hittable. I think that his cardio and power just kind of, wanes later in fights, and really his only win of notice late was over Ike, which he fought for PEDs. So he hasn't really had a noticeable win, anything recently. And like Luke touched on, Arlovsky's been pretty competitive in these last few fights. Nobody's really outstriking him. So I don't mind Arlovsky. I really just didn't want to play it at minus 150, but money's coming in. I don't mind it to pick him.
Yeah, so no bet for me, but something I think is interesting is maybe taking a shot at the under here. And I'll tell you why. Like, Luke, I get your point about Arlovsky doing a good job suppressing volume. But one thing I will say is if you actually look at the guys Arlovsky has been fighting lately, you got guys like Bozer, Lynch, Rosenstruck, those are guys that like, if they can't get off right or you're countering them, they're going to kind of slow down on their own. He hasn't faced a whole lot of like crazy rabid fighters who are going to come after him. Sherman, on the other hand, is that guy, the guy who, like, you look at his fight with Justin Willis, where he's just getting countered to death and still saying, fuck this, I'm going forward. And so I kind of think, I agree Arlovsky is the more skilled fighter here completely. But I do think, and look, Arlovsky's not really a guy, if you go for him, he's not going to not throw back. Like you saw the last guy he fought who really did that was Rothwell, and that was – I think Arlovsky landed like 140 significant strikes that fight against Rothwell. I mean, that was wild. And I don't think Sherman is as durable as Rothwell. Arlovsky's durability was probably underrated for a while. I don't think he's chinny, but I do think, if Sherman does what Sherman does and goes forward and just spams shit at him, at some point someone's going down. So like a plus number at it, I don't really mind, to be honest. So, yeah, I might take a shot at it. I'm not sure if I will, but I actually do think this is going to be like low-key an action fight. Like, I don't really think Chase Sherman's going to do the Felipe Lynch and stare at him trying to track him down. He's going to just go for it and see, come hell or high water, see what happens. But, yeah, we move on. We get to our co-main event of the evening. We have Drakkar Klose taking on Jeremy Stephens. Both of these guys coming off pretty vicious KOs. Klose getting knocked out by Beneil Dariush. Stephens getting knocked out by one of the craziest counter elbows you'll ever see from Calvin Kattar. And on top of that, we have Stephens coming up to lightweight and Klose saying after this fight he's going down to featherweight, which is a pretty interesting dynamic. And yeah, I have a pretty big bet here on Jeremy Stephens, to be honest. I have 2.5 units on him at minus 120. So it's funny because like Lags mentioned on like, I think it was like Saturday or Sunday, he was like, I think I'm going to play Stephens. And I was like, I kind of like Klose. I don't know. And then it's like, my normal process for like breaking down fights, look at the tape, look at the metrics, and then kind of look at the level of competition, where the trajectory is like. And when I looked at it, like, I don't see what Klose does better than Stephens, to be honest. Maybe calf kicks. He does have a vicious calf kick. But, the things that have given Stephens issues historically are either really top-level wrestlers who can hold him down, which Klose is not. Maybe he lands takedowns, but I'd be surprised if he holds him down. Or strikers who are very, very fast. They can stay on the outside and take advantage of him loading up. This is actually, I think, the rare instance where Stephens may actually have a speed advantage against his opponent. And that's kind of crazy. And just like, it's funny. I never thought I would say, Jeremy Stephens just has a lot more tools at his disposal than anybody. But, looking at his fights with Kattar versus, every close fight where all he does is kind of zombie forward, land kicks and try to just tank your damage until you wear out. Like, I just think Stephens has a lot more tools. He's got better kicks. He has better boxing, to be honest. He's less hittable than Klose is. And I think he's the much bigger hitter. I kind of think if Klose does his normal thing and just goes forward, he's going to pay for it very, very badly here over and over and over again. I guess it's possible Stephens is wearing out. That could be the case. But, he looked fine against Kattar before that elbow. And I'm inclined to think, no one's living through that. So basically, I just look at it. It's like, yeah, I get he's on a 4-fight losing streak, but none of those guys is ranked lower than 7th at featherweight. All of those guys are arguably better than everybody Klose has fought, except for Penney, who killed Klose. Stephens at least had competitive-ish fights in all of those spots. So yeah, I'm on Stephens for 2.5 units. I think the line is just a case of kind of recency bias with Stephens. Luke, how about you?
Yeah, I'm on Stephens as well. I guess the best way I can describe it, you touched on it a little bit before, that like traditionally the guys that are struggling with Stephens, it's your Frank Yeager, your wrestler, or, your traditional long guys are going to play the outside, the Moicano, the Zabit, Yair, Kelvin to some extent, not, I guess, so much because that is, I should say, at least early on in the fight, kind of Kelvin did give him that pressure style, and that's where we saw Jeremy have success. And so I guess that's my big point with Close, and ultimately the reason why I played Stevens too, is that I feel like Close is going to give Stevens the kind of fight that Stevens needs to succeed. To beat a guy like Jeremy Stevens, I think the blueprint is actually pretty much out there already, but honestly, I don't think Close is the most intelligent human being in the world, and I think he knows one way how to fight, and that's how he's going to come out and fight. And you get into a firefight with Jeremy Stevens. For me personally, I trust Jeremy Stevens more in that firefight personally. We saw what happened when a guy tried to do that against him back in 2018 in Duho Choi. He got his head taken off. So I kind of see it being a similar scenario here, where I think Stevens does find a KO. If it does get late, despite my pre-fight read of thinking that, Stevens outlands him, I guess I'm not going heavier on it because Close just does come forward and spam shit. So I guess hypothetically the numbers could be competitive. He's the closest, the one going forward maybe, and he weasels something that way. So I'm not overtly exposed to it just for that potential result. But largely I do think it's a very winnable fight for Jeremy Stevens. And with the whole going up to lightweight down to 145 for Close, despite Stevens going up, he's not undersized here in any capacity. And I agree with you too, John, that I think he's the bigger hitter of the two, who's actually probably better defensively, which you're not going to say too often about Jeremy Stevens. Yeah. So I think around, 55 or so percent, I think it's a good bet.
Legs, have you?
Yeah, I got 2.5 on Jeremy Stevens at -120 as well. Similar thoughts here. Favor Jeremy on power, durability against Close. I don't think the wrestling really is coming to play here at all. Cardio, I'd say probably about even. I trust that Stevens in the firefight. Essentially, I guess that's basically what it comes down to. And I tweeted out earlier. I know it's cliche every time we talk about close fights, but Close has close fights. It's not like he's blowing guys out of the water. And Stevens is having close fights with. You mentioned it, John. Fast strikers, not just fast strikers, elite strikers. And Jakar Close is nowhere near an elite striker. So I think this is an easy bet. And Luke's touched on 55%. I like it a lot.
Yeah, I agree. And I think I'd argue Stevens looked great against Cater before he got finished. It was the best he's looked in years, to be honest.
He won the first round, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think he got the cards too. Yeah.
Did he?
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't really understand the close love, but I guess we'll see. And like you said, Legs, he has close fights, but it's at some point that stops. And if you look at the metrics for them, that's the thing. Because I'm always afraid to play Jeremy Stevens because I never think he can win a decision. He's got better metrics at everything than Close does. That's the thing.
It's one of the few occasions I think he can win a decision.
Yes, yeah. I favor him probably. It's so yeah. I think that's the side, but. We'll see. So we move on. Legs, start with you here. We got the former champion, Robert Whittaker, taking on Kelvin Gastelum in a fight that was supposed to happen a couple of years ago for the title. This one, potential number one contenders fight. What do you got?
I like Rob here, but I'm definitely not as, in love with him to the sense that I think he's a solid parlay piece or anything this week. I think this comes down to a pretty close fight. I just favor Rob on technical striking, better defensively, and, I just think has better IQ, honestly, in those moments that he needs in this fight. And I think he's just going to be the better minute winner across the full 5 rounds. So I actually have a small play on Robin, 4-5 decision at -110 for a unit.
Yeah, fair. So I don't know if I'll play it or not, but I'm leaning towards playing it.
I thought you were doing it.
I think I'm going to do it. I like Kelvin, to be honest. That's big. I just... Look, I played Rob pretty big against Hill. I was pretty confident there. And to be honest, I was pretty disappointed with that fight. It was closer than I thought it should have been against Hill. Now, granted, Hill does a pretty good job of suppressing volume, but, we saw him hurt Rob in that fight. And it's look, we've talked on this pod before how Chinese can be overrated, but, how many consecutive fights do we need to see Rob get hurt before it's okay, we know the guy can, he has a style that is reckless and based on blitzing forward and coming in where he is very hittable and where we've seen him get hurt a lot. We saw him get hurt at the end against Cannoneer. And on top of that, if you actually go and look, their metrics are actually pretty similar. They faced a very similar level of competition. I think Whittaker is the more complete fighter. Like, he has more options than things he can fall back to, with stuff like kicks, his wrestling that, Kelvin doesn't really have. I mean, I know he wrestled Ian Heinisch, but everybody wrestles Ian Heinisch, it seems like. So it's like that doesn't really like mean that much to me. I doubt he can wrestle Rob. But,
yeah,
I can't get past that. And it's like, look, I favor Whittaker, but I do think, look, Kelvin does have a speed edge in the pocket. Whittaker's style invariably leaves him in the pocket a lot. That blitz forward, that's where he often finds himself, and that's where he gets hurt. On top of that, like if you were to compare that both statistically and the type of fights, like Kelvin through 3 rounds with Till was pretty similar to Rob through 3 rounds with Till. Kelvin against Adesanya outlanded him a distance in the first 4 rounds of that fight. Now, look, don't get me wrong. I'd be all over Adesanya at the same line in a rematch with Kelvin. My point is more, I get the issue surrounding Kelvin. I've been fairly anti-Kelvin, but the fact of the matter is, he's probably getting a bit too much hate for that 3-fight losing streak when he lost a 50-50 to Till. He had a very competitive fight with Adesanya and kind of just got memed by Hermanson at that heel hook. I don't know. I kind of think Rob should be about 60%, but I really think Kelvin can be pretty competitive here, especially if we get a similar fight to what we got with Whittaker Till. Like that was the kind of fight where if Till lands 1 or 2 more hard shots in any of the last 4 rounds, he wins that fight. So yeah, I'm gonna probably play Kelvin. Luke, how about you?
Yeah, I thought originally I might have a decent sized bet on Whittaker, but after doing my due diligence, I kind of think he's 66% here. So I do actually think the line is a tad high, but obviously definitely not even remotely enough for me to play Kelvin. I'd need a much bigger number to play Kelvin personally. But yeah, you guys pretty much touched on all the points. I guess I'm more so on the Rob side. I think he just does more. I think Kelvin's going to have a bit more of a difficult time tracking him down personally, but he does have a really nice left hand if he's able to time and pick up on some of those movement patterns of Rob and time an entry and hurt him. I wouldn't be surprised personally. But I guess overall, I do think let me put it this way. I don't think Whittaker just blows Kelvin out of the water. I do think it's at least a moderately competitive fight. But Whittaker's, I guess, kind of the clear round winner, if that makes sense. And so in my opinion, if you were to play it, I like Lags' 4-5 decision, or just Rob decision. I think it's like plus 130 or something like that. So
yeah, that's what it was. Yeah.
So you just touched on something good too, and that's kind of like my thinking, which is like Rob's style. He doesn't usually get massively out ahead on rounds. Probably not against someone like Kelvin, and that's like kind of my thinking is the opportunities for Kelvin to land hard in multiple rounds and whether knock him out or just hurt him enough to win a round are going to be there. The volume is probably going to be pretty low in this fight, I would think, on both sides, and so. I don't know. I think there's going to be a lot of ample opportunities for Kelvin to win this fight. It's just very hard when you have 2 guys, at this level to have somebody be over 70% implied and have that be accurate, to be honest. Like you would need to favor Whittaker on finishing upside. And I don't really see how you get there. I think, knockout upside is fairly significantly in Kelvin's favor, in my opinion, anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys agree with that, but that's.
Yeah, no, I agree. The only thing is I did see there's a thread earlier going on Twitter that but Gastelum hasn't really knocked out anybody under the age of 34, so that's kind of also
people say that until he does do it, right? Like,
I know.
Curtis Blades hadn't eaten a fucking uppercut on a shot until Derek Lewis hit him with it.
Don't bring that up again.
But that's my thing.
What I will say to John, I guess if you're on the Kelvin side as well, Kelvin KO right now is sitting at 5-1, and if you kind of lean in that, he finds Rob in the pocket.
He probably has 25 minutes to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think that's bad, to be honest. Maybe no scorecards. I don't know what it's at, but we'll see. Tyler Paul thinks I'm on Rob if he's minus 150. I don't think so, man.
I'd play Rob at minus 150.
I would play Rob straight at minus 150, to be honest, too.
I like Rob, but
so Rob no scorecards is Wait, you say? Oh no, Kelvin no scorecards plus
Yeah.
175.
What?
Kelvin no scorecards. Yeah, plus 175.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
I might play that.
I'm gonna probably take a bunch of that, to be honest.
Did that just open Wednesday?
Yeah.
Oh, 4 hours ago. Okay, that's gonna move.
Yeah.
I'd hit that right now if you're gonna play.
I'm gonna hit it as soon as we get off. But yeah, so that's it. That's what we got.
Well, there
this
you go.
week.
Well, there you go, guys. There's the play for the main event.
We got a big pay-per-view next week. Unfortunately, at least, look, I have some more work to do on it. It doesn't seem like it's going to be a great betting card either at first glance, to be honest. May 1st is a great betting card, but we have 3 championship fights, plus we get to bitch about Jorge getting a title fight next Wednesday. So it'll be fun. I'm
going to be in attendance.
And Lags is going. I'm going to be in Florida, not in attendance, though. But yeah, guys, thanks for coming out tonight. As usual, you got me, John Stargarian MMA, at Twitter at MMA Fox, Luke at SWR_betting, and Lags at Lags_the Capper. Please, if you like the show, drop a like and subscribe. We'd really appreciate it. It would help us out a lot. And yeah, guys, good luck on your bets this weekend, and we'll see you next Wednesday. Have a good one.